Hey folks, Randy Arsenault here with Red Friday Talks, and I'm here once again with Dave Connor. Dave, how you doing today, bud?
Great, buddy. Good to see you. You well?
Yeah, I'm doing well, and I
Excellent.
got to say, I'm looking forward to these chats that we have.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
we cover all kinds of different things, a lot of things that come up on the fly, a lot of issues that come up on the fly, which is what we're doing today. And you had kind of a cool idea about something that we can talk about. I mean, it's a cool idea, but it's something that's very important as well. So why don't you mention what that is?
Yeah, so I quite enjoyed our last bit, and then I saw you do a short piece on using your handcuffs and having them positioned so that you could get them and they're in the right spot and they go on the way they're supposed to go. And
Yeah.
I found that fascinating on two levels. One was that's a very basic piece of police PPE kind of stuff, if I look at it from that kind of term. And an officer that didn't know how to work his handcuffs properly kind of struck me as a firefighter that doesn't know how their SCBA works. Like, your life expectancy is printed on the bottle of the SCBA, and I think it's
Like,
we take that real serious.
I kind of struggle. Well, I didn't struggle, but I debated whether or not I should even make that video. But the fact is, because I have to say that of all the training I've ever received at police college, and has all been top notch. The instructors know exactly what they're doing, and they've trained. I'm very, very lucky. I've had a lot of positive experiences. But the fact is, when you watch videos on YouTube, you see a lot of police officers that are fumbling with their handcuffs, almost as if it's the first time they took them out. So it's not like these things aren't happening, and
Yeah,
that's just something that the public kind of. It's not a need to know, but it's a nice to know, and why not share it? The public finds it interesting. So
totally. Well,
today,
and if
yeah,
there's a parallel in fire, it's that fire crews don't practice with ladders enough. So when they have to throw ladders, they kind of look like they stole them. It's not that much fun to watch as a command guy. So I
interesting.
kind of get it. Some of that equipment that you rely on, you still need to train on the basics.
Yeah, yeah, agree. So what do we got today? We were
So
going to talk. Yeah,
yeah, I wanted to ask you something about that because here at Red Friday we're all about peer support and we provide peer support training, and I've been doing it for 35 years or more now, it feels like. And one of the things when we're dealing with when we're trying to get peers to have the strength of conversation to talk to people who are fixing to hurt themselves or are clearly suicidal, you have a spot in the role where you go, I have to stay with this person until I get them some help. And
yeah,
yes, we do a safety agreement with the person that, you got to promise you aren't going to hurt yourself while you're here with me. They will typically say that, and we're going to get you some help. One of the things that is of concern is that the level of service across the even across, if you're in a county, but across the province and the country in regards to who's coming when you call 911, and then where are they going after that? Because I don't think all hospitals necessarily have a 24-hour intake and hold for mental health issues. I'm not sure that they do.
no, you're
And in
correct. Yeah,
that, and then in the police service, and I'd really like to get your perspective on this. Um, Especially if somebody's presenting with mental health issues, when the police arrive, I think unless they would be part of that mental health response team, they're going to put that person in handcuffs. It's a safety thing. It's an absolute must. You can't put somebody who's having issues behind you in the police car without cuffing them, and if that's absolutely going to aggravate the circumstance. So I wanted to know where your thinking was on that as a policy piece, but also where you were in terms of the how well we're doing in providing that broader service with the mental health folks.
yeah, those are a few issues that we can really dive into, and controversial issues, which is great because these controversial issues need to be discussed. Regarding handcuffs, yeah, you're correct. It's pretty much policy, mostly across the board. When I say across the board, it's with every police service I know, that when you have somebody in the back of your vehicle who's presenting, that who could be violent or have an outburst, yes, they're in cuffs. If of course, not all procedures are broken all the time. I mean,
Sure.
if you have a child who's been injured at an accident, and you're going to bring their mother or parent to the scene, of course you go in the back of the car. You're not going to cuff that person. But
Right.
if there is somebody who's presenting, there might be some issues, or there's a history of violence, yeah, you put them in cuffs. You also brought up it's called the Mobile Crisis Intervention Team. It's called the MCIT, and
Right.
that's where a police officer, drives around with a nurse or
Mm,
drive around. They're on patrol with a nurse, with a
yeah,
psych nurse, and they can do
sure. Great.
evaluations, psych evaluations on scene. Now, it's a fantastic program. It's not properly funded, in my opinion, which means there needs to be many more of these teams right across the entire country. Uh, Now, the problem is, I'm going to just mention a very real scenario.
Sure.
Uh, if you, there could be on a busy service like Toronto, you can have a few different MCIT cars out throughout the entire city at the different divisions at one time. Let's say there's 6 cars.
Mhm.
The problem is, and that's great, but the problem is you could have 30 or 40, you could have dozens of calls where somebody is in crisis, mental health in crisis. And the fact of the matter is these teams exist, but you're probably, if somebody is presenting as violent, or we don't know what the situation is, we don't even know that it is a mental health
Mhm. Mhm.
crisis. It could be just the call could come across as a person with a knife. The police are going to get there. And again, this raises all kinds of other issues or things that we could talk about because I mean, just the police showing up can heighten,
Oh yes, absolutely.
you know.
It's like when you get into the Sally port and people who've been behaving suddenly stop behaving, right?
Well, that's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's a fantastic program. The MCIT, the Mobile Crisis Intervention Team. I went
Mm.
through all the training as a police
Oh,
officer.
great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
I think
I would maybe a follow on to that is that I think that was born out of a desire, a necessity actually to change the way wellness checks are done, where somebody's presenting in go to check on somebody and you get there and they're flipped out or they're off their meds or doubled up on their meds or what have you, and in that old fashioned command and control approach, it ends in violence because
right.
if I love that old expression, right? When your only tool's a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
The fact is, Dave, there are a lot of calls that police are attending where police probably shouldn't be the ones to be attending.
Mhm.
And it's such a shame because when families are calling for uh, for help because another
Mhm.
family member
Right.
is in crisis. They need help. They need assistance. What they don't need is the police right away to often, again, even if the police come in and are calm, the fact is they're wearing these uniforms that say
Absolutely.
police, and it can be very triggering for a lot of people because
Certainly.
of what you find, what you see
Well,
online.
and that by showing up, you shift the power balance in the scene, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
that person who was in an agitated state might have thought they were in charge of the scene until you all got there. So yeah, that's it's problematic, but at least we're trying something. So this I don't know if this would ever happen. Do police carry more than one set of handcuffs, or do you just have the one set,
Yes,
or
they
is there other
carry.
sets in the car?
They can. They can carry one set of handcuffs. Also, in some vehicles, there's leg restraints,
Ah, okay.
and there's other types of restraints as well. So if somebody's in the back of the vehicle and they're really kind of flipping out all over the place, you
Yeah.
can actually restrain. I don't have a set here, but you can actually restrain them. It's just basically something that attaches to the handcuffs
Oh,
that
sure.
goes through the police vehicle, and if there's 2 officers, the passenger can actually hold this and keep control of the of
Oh,
the
I
of
never, I wasn't aware of that. So if broad hypothetical, if somebody who has some training in trying to help people calls 911 and the officers arrive and say, my friend here is suicidal, we have to get him in. Would the officer be willing to let the helper or the handler be in the police car and not handcuffed? That might be, if they were willing to transport with them. It strikes me as something that is probably against protocol, but I think a reasonable officer would do it.
Yes, yes, for sure. Well, that's the thing. You just hit it right there. A reasonable officer.
Sure.
The
Well,
fact
yeah,
is there's situations where uh, let's say you're dealing with an individual who's very, very heightened, and they're with one person, a worker who keeps them calm or
sure.
has the
Yeah.
ability to calm them down.
Yeah. Why would you mess with that? Yeah.
Exactly. Why would you mess with that? Now,
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
there's situations where you would prefer that individual to drive in the back of the ambulance as well. As you
Yes.
know, when somebody calls police, often the paramedics and the firefighters show up at the same calls
Yeah.
until you really kind of determine what's happening. And a lot of times, that person will go with them in the back of the ambulance. And if there is if there are concerns, then the police officer, if there's two officers in a scout car, a police officer will actually ride in the back of the ambulance
Hmm.
with the worker and a paramedic as well. There's so many different situations. We were chatting
Yeah.
earlier. Something I want to talk about quickly was not all hospitals are equipped to deal with these situations as well.
Mm.
So if in Toronto, if you have a person in crisis that they meet the criteria and they have to be seen by a physician, you will get on the air, ask the dispatcher if there's any beds available or what hospitals are accepting, because there could only be 6 or 7 hospitals around the city that actually have the facilities or individuals working
Mm.
who can deal with this, and some of them might be filled up. So even though you might have one or two in your division, you might be driving across the city in order to get this person seen. It's
I would also suspect that there's the same sort of staffing issues with the mental health teams where if there's 168 hours in a week, there's probably only nurses running with officers for 80 hours of that time. I'm really surprised that they're doing that 3 a.m. to 3 a.m. type stuff with nurses. If they are, that's great, but I'd be surprised if they did.
you know I had an interesting conversation with uh, a I don't want to get into names, but his
No, no.
brother unfortunately lost his life, and there was police involvement, and it
Hmm.
was mental health. And there's all kinds of case law and such which is being created around this. And perhaps this is an individual that we can have a conversation with. We can bring into uh, the Red Friday Circle and have a
Sure.
conversation with
Love it.
them. The fact is, there just aren't enough. A lot of family members, when they see people don't want to call the cops. I'm getting back to the beginning of this. People don't always want to call the cops on a family member, but sometimes calling the police on a family member is the best thing that you can do for them.
Yes.
Because even if it's not a police matter, the police may be able uh, to refer this individual to programs or services who can help this individuals. The
Mm.
what I see taking place is a lot of families when they have a member who may be a family member who may be showing signs of schizophrenia and are getting progressively worse, the police aren't called until something really bad happens, and
Totally.
then it's a police matter. An assault takes place.
Yeah.
There's a clear something happened where now police have to act, whereas
Right. Right.
before this could have been dealt with in a different way using other resources. And listen, just having this conversation, maybe this is something that we have to do as Red Friday or just in our current roles. We have to get the message out and let people know, listen, don't wait until it becomes an issue
Yeah,
where
no.
police have to get involved.
When families are at the end of their rope, their ability to deal. I mean, that's typically what generates the call, right? Is the
Yeah,
family's ability to deal with whatever this is has reached
yeah,
a point where it's fractured, and they call 911 because they may be fearful, or that an assault might have taken place, or there's issues around self harm and stuff. And all of that stuff means you're getting the lights and sirens approach, and then the it's so easy to throw buns, with that blue team red team joke that we do. It's always good natured, at least on my end, but um, officers are routinely over caffeinated and sleep deprived, and their capacity for kindness can be impacted by that. And I
well,
think we don't give them enough credit for all of the hours that police officers work, all the time they spend in court, all the time they spend away from their family. That let's remember the fact that how good are you at your job when you're sleep deprived? And if you're in any way honest with yourself, you say, you know what, I'm cranky, I'm reactive, and I'm no fun to be with.
Dave, thanks for recognizing that, by the way. That's a great point, and I appreciate you saying that. I'm also, for anybody who's watching who may have any concerns, I'm also in the notes in the description of this video. I'm going to include some resources which are
Beautiful.
free to call for anybody, not just for the person who might be in crisis, but for family members. There's lots of resources out there. Uh, Dave, I'm glad we had this conversation. We're going to end this in a couple minutes, but I think this is the start of a more broad conversation that we'll have,
Yes.
and maybe we can bring in some professionals as well.
Love it.
What do you think about that?
I think it's great, and if we only have a couple of minutes, I wanted to close off with the notion of the peer support thing. Is that the conversation that we've had today is about our knowledge of our local area, and we're big city boys. There might be places across the province or the country, and the magic of the interwebs has no boundaries. So we might be having fans that are listening to us in Texas. I guarantee you, we don't know how they do business in Texas. So if you're a peer support person or somebody who's trying to gather the resources for your community, just place a call to your local hospital and find out what their intake is for suicidal people. Find out what their hours are. Call the police on the non-emergency lines. See if they have the mental health response teams. If they do, maybe you find out what times of day that they're working, so that if or when you need them, you don't get yourself an out of control mess just by dialing those three numbers.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Uh, and listen, anybody who would like more resources or find out a little bit more about Red Friday Talks, please check out the website, redfridaytalks.help. And we have videos coming out on a regular basis. We're on social media and we're really getting moving. We got some big things planned and we're
big things
excited
planned.
about
Yeah,
it. Yeah, big
beautiful.
things planned. Dave, I'm going to put you on the spot. Any last words of advice or wisdom for folks out there?
Well, I don't know if I have any of that. I just like the idea that we can talk about something as simple as a piece of PPE and have it turn into a broader social engineering conversation. I really
Yeah,
quite enjoyed that.
yeah, yeah,
I guess, if there's a closing note, I think it has to be kindness always. We have to approach each other with some basic kindness and decency, and recognize for just a minute the difference between empathy and sympathy. As an empathetic person, you can understand how people are feeling. Well, then, if you try to understand how they're feeling, their feelings are going to drive their behavior. It allows you to be more effective and a better person. And for heaven's sakes, get some sleep.
and get some sleep. Perfect way to end it off.
Yeah, but
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, anybody who's still watching. Again, redfridaytalks.help. Have a fantastic day.